you have an Air Force pilot, and the average age of a fighter aircraft in the Air Force is 30 years old. The airplane is older than the pilot.
Oh my
In the
gosh.
Cold War, we had almost 600 ships in the Navy and kept about 100 out on any given day to confront the Soviets and whatnot. Today, we have 292 ships, so less than half. We keep the same number out, which means you're working ships and crew twice as much as you would otherwise. It's not uncommon for a Navy ship to be undermanned by 15%. The U.S. Army, 770,000 soldiers in the active duty in the Cold War. Today, 452,000. Last year alone, they shrank by 33,000 soldiers. They'll shrink another 7,000 this year to 445. It's the smallest army since the 1930s. So these are facts that are inarguable, and the American public has been shielded from this. The government doesn't share this sort of information. We've got the greatest military in the world, so what's the problem? And the reality is far different.
Right, because to your point, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, it's one thing to say we've got a great military insofar as we have a lot of manpower, we have a lot of firepower, we've got great people, but the true judge of a military is whether or not it's equipped to confront its responsibilities. And that's really what we're talking about here, right? If it was simply a matter of guarding the homeland, maybe we're doing okay, but to be able to project power, to act as a superpower around the world, we're really struggling. And you mentioned the Air Force. That branch of our military received the lowest rating in this index, very weak, which is particularly disturbing since the Biden administration is currently crowing about carrying out these bombings in retaliation against Iran's proxies, where I think we dropped more bombs that actually killed people because they gave everybody 72 hours of warning, but that's maybe a discussion for another time. Why specifically beyond the age of the aircraft is the Air Force in such trouble?
Well, just another number for you on that. The aerial refuelers that you use to get those B-1 bombers to the Middle East, they average 60 years old. So the refuelers are as old as the parents of the pilots flying the airplanes, right? So another factoid. In the Cold War, the average Air Force pilot flew in excess of 200 hours a year, and many of them were 300 or more. And so you're flying 4, maybe 5 times a week. And they would make fun of their Soviet counterparts like flying 120 hours, right? There was this saying that you could give the Soviets modern American aircraft and we would take the crappy Soviet stuff and still beat them because our pilots flew so much they were that good. Today, the average pilot flies fewer than 130 hours. They fly 1 to 1.5 times a week. Meanwhile, Chinese pilots are flying 200 hours. So the Chinese are flying today as much as our pilots flew back in the Cold War. Today, our pilots are only flying as much as the Soviet pilots that we used to make fun of. So when you want competency, even if you've got a really cool F-16 or maybe even an F-35 and lots of good radars and missiles and all that sorts of things, if you're only flying once a week, how is it that you would expect that pilot to survive against a Russian or a Chinese advanced integrated air defense system, an S-300, S-400 or something like that, or against a pilot? And the numbers things really matter because we might have 100 ships sailing the ocean, 1/3 of our fleet. Only about 60 of those are in the Western Pacific. China's Navy is 360. So it's a 6-to-1 numerical advantage, China over the U.S., where it matters. They're within a couple hundred miles of coast. The nearest base for U.S. ships in that part of the world is 1,500 miles away in either Japan or in Guam. And so China can cover all of its stuff with land-based aircraft and anti-ship cruise missiles. Our guys are sailing pretty much alone and hopefully unafraid. So, again, it's these numbers, right? Competency, age, whether you're flying, driving, shooting enough, and then we take a percentage of our force and would have to apply it against the totality of whatever opponent we're going against, where we're operating thousands of miles from home and they're playing a home game there on turf that they know.
So it's lovely to talk, as these politicians love to do. That's what they excel at, talking, not doing, about the moral imperative of defending Taiwan from a Chinese incursion or full-scale invasion. Based upon what you're telling me, it doesn't seem like we have a prayer of doing that, particularly if we are currently embroiled in something in the Middle East. I don't know if we can call it a war, but certainly tensions are increased. There is a war currently over in the Gaza Strip. We are arming Ukraine, and it doesn't seem like that war is going particularly well for the NATO-backed insurgents in that country and the NATO-backed government in that country. If China invades Taiwan tomorrow, do we have any ability to have anything to say about it?
We've been trying to arm the Taiwanese. Oftentimes they ask for kind of marquee systems, and we think maybe they should have other sorts of weapons, but we're trying to help them best we can. We have a very good, I'm the best in the world, truly, submarine force. And so a lot of the planning says that our submarines, if you have advance notice, can get there in time and sink a lot of Chinese ships carrying troops to try to invade the island of Taiwan.
And we cut that recent deal with Australia, where we're supposed to help them with development of submarine technology, but that takes time, obviously.
The 2030s. Right. So, if we avoid a war for the next decade, well, maybe we're sitting pretty. Maybe we've got death robots and directed energy and artificial intelligence that helps us know better where to place around. But this index looks at its scores. It's a report card on the military we have today. So if, Ukraine collapses, for example, and Russia decides to move on through Belarus into Lithuania or to attack Poland or something along those lines, we've got a real problem. And Germany and France and England and our allies are in worse shape than we are. Right. The British Army is the smallest since 1710, Napoleonic, pre-Napoleonic era.
Before we existed.
Before we existed. West Germany had 5,000 tanks in the Cold War. Today, the whole of Germany only has 300 Leopard 2s, and fewer than 100 of those are operationally available. The Minister of Defense doesn't believe the German military can actually defend Germany itself, much less export military power. In Great Britain, the entirety of the British military, Army, Navy, Air Force, and Royal Marines, is 160,000 personnel, smaller than the U.S. Marine Corps alone at 174,000. They would struggle to field a single division. They only have 20 ships in the Royal Navy. France has 227, I think, tanks. The French military has been assessed as probably being challenged to operate more than 4 days in high-intensity warfare, 4 days. And going back into the Pacific, Japan, we had some Japanese officers at Heritage a couple of years ago, and they said their inventory of munitions that they would use on ships and aircraft, they only have enough to support 3 sorties. So you go out with a full magazine, shoot it, come back, reload twice, and then you'd be completely out of munitions.
One of my favorite movies of all time, The Longest Day. Do you remember that scene where there's the Luftwaffe pilot that goes out, shoots a couple rounds of ammunition, and then flies off and says, "Oh, the Luftwaffe had its grand day"? That's essentially what we're steaming towards here.
Yeah, the thing has changed. The Soviet Union goes away, and we didn't have any major competitors in the 90s. Dramatic cuts in the U.S. military, across the board. And so what we did against Iraq in 1991 was using Reagan's military, all that stuff. And then we went back in 2003, you had the residual of that, so you could consume things, but we never replenished. And when we're flying airplanes in Afghanistan or Iraq or now over, Syria or Yemen, even if you don't drop a bomb, you're still using up the hours that determine the lifespan of the airplane, right? 6,000, 8,000 hours or so. And so if you're not replacing things at the same rate that you're using them up, you find yourself with very little junk. As of a year ago or so, the U.S. military had not bought a Stinger missile, one of the shoulder-fired or vehicle-mounted anti-aircraft missiles, hadn't bought a Stinger missile in 17 years. So the companies that make that stuff, the components, went out of business, 10, 12, 14 years ago.
So we can't get them even if we want them.
No, they have to reinvent. You have to go back out and find people using plans that can retool and make the parts that now you need. So when you give the Air Force money, it takes 2 to 3 years for that dollar to be converted into an actual weapon that then is delivered back to the service. So even if you flushed them with cash, you wouldn't see the new stuff for 2 or 3 years from now.
So this is objectively bleak stuff. There's no beating around the bush here. As we come down to the final few minutes of the hour, I know this is a massive question because it's a massive problem that developed over time. Let's say we have a new president, hypothetically, coming in about a year from now. Where does he start to begin to literally right the ship and rebuild a military that clearly is degrading to the point where it doesn't sound like we have any hope of winning a two-front war?
Munitions has got to be it. That's the easiest spigot to start turning on. Minimum sustain rates, very limited production lines, but at least you can do that. Building a ship or an airplane is a whole other order of magnitude problem. Getting new workers, the large components that take to build a ship. A ship takes 3 to 5 years to build. So even if you just had this massive infusion of cash, the industry now is so small it couldn't absorb it. It takes 5 years to train a welder to do appropriate welds on a submarine hull up in Groton, Connecticut, right? So these are very long lead time items. And then recruiting the force, 3 out of 4 young Americans are ineligible for military service because of obesity, mental or physical health problems, substance abuse, or criminal records. 3 out of 4. The Navy has raised the maximum age of enlistment to 41 years old, so you can be 41 and still join the Navy.
I've got a year to go, Henry.
Yeah, and
I can swim.
Taking the lowest category of folks. You have 100% graduation rate out of flight school. Less than 0.25% don't graduate due to lack of proficiency, and all captains in the Army are automatically promoted to major. So, what do these figures tell you?
Oh my God. I shouldn't laugh, but it's the only way I can prevent myself from crying. I will say this, Dakota Wood. You did not make me feel better at all. Thank you. But I feel much better informed about a very serious problem that bringing us back to the beginning of this discussion. This is the part of these ongoing debates we're having about foreign policy right now that I don't think are getting enough attention. Should we arm Ukraine? Should we not arm Ukraine? Whether it's the right or wrong thing to do. Is Zelensky a hero or is he a villain? Well, folks, we need to talk about whether or not we even have the capacity to sustain this. And of course, what we need to do as a country to make sure we have the option to make the right decision, whatever that might be. Dakota Wood, he's a senior research fellow down at the Heritage Foundation. Heritage.org is where you can go check out his great research. You can also visit and learn up on the 2024 U.S. Military Strength Index. I warn you again, it is not happy reading, but I think it's important reading before you head to the polls in 2024. Dakota Wood, thanks for joining us on the Matt Rooney Show. Don't be a stranger.
No, my pleasure. Hey, say hi to Margaret Thatcher for me.
I'm going to post a photoshopped image maybe this week, and I will send it to you, and you can tell me whether I did a good job.
Take care.
You too. Dakota Wood, everyone, from the Heritage Foundation. You're listening to Matt Rooney on 1210 WPHT. First hour of the Matt Rooney Show is now behind us, but 2 full hours left to go. Be back in just a sec.
At Consumer Cellular, you get the same exact coverage as the largest carriers, but for up to half the cost. Same thing, up to half the cost. Up to half the cost for the same thing. 50% the money for 100% the same thing. I hope I'm making myself clear. Consumer Cellular. When freedom calls, we're here to answer. Call us at 1-888-FREEDOM.
Half the cost savings based on cost of Consumer Cellular single-line 5GB data plan with unlimited talk and text compared to lowest cost single-line postpaid unlimited talk, text, and data plan offered by T-Mobile and Verizon May 2023.
Pass it on. You've heard it said, he's a diamond in the rough. Or maybe, diamonds are forever. Here's something else I've learned about diamonds. They're just pieces of coal put under pressure for a long, long, long time. So when I start feeling like I want to give up, I think about that little piece of coal. And if that piece of coal can make something of itself by not giving up, so can I. Persistence is in you. Pass it on. From PassItOn.com.
Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean. Of course I use Mr. Clean Magic Eraser to clean tough messes off my stovetop and bathtub. But then I discovered I can also use it to easily clean my patio furniture and even my shoes. I'm hooked.
And when wipes won't cut it, I use Magic Eraser Sheets. They're thin and flexible erasers, perfect for everyday messes, like gunk on my counters and sinks. They really are magical.
The reviews are in. Mr. Clean Magic Eraser and Sheets make cleaning look easy.
Don't miss The Education Show with Dom Giordano every Sunday morning at 5:30. Find out how you can help your child or grandchild succeed. Sponsored by New Hope Academy. Don't miss the Labor and Energy Show with J-Doc and Krause, brought to you by Advocacy United, this Saturday night at 6. Find out about the important issues that'll affect you. The Labor and Energy Show, Saturday night at 6 on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT.
It all comes down to this. Super Bowl 58. Listen live from Westwood One on the free Odyssey app. The Kansas City Chiefs.
Takes the snap. Darts a pass near side. Caught by Kelsey. Wrapped to the ground at the 12.
And the San Francisco 49ers.
With a comeback for the ages, the 49ers are going back to the Super Bowl.
Wherever you are next Sunday, stream Super Bowl 58 with Westwood One on the free Odyssey app. Download it today and search Super Bowl. AUDACY.
Pain in your knees, shoulders, hips, or back that won't go away? Check out QC Kinetics. No surgery, drugs, or downtime. QC Kinetics. 215-999-3000.
At Consumer Cellular, you get the same exact coverage as the largest carriers, but for up to half the cost. Same thing, up to half the cost. Up to half the cost for the same thing. 50% the money for 100% the same thing. I hope I'm making myself clear. Consumer Cellular. When freedom calls, we're here to answer. Call us at 1-888-FREEDOM.
Half the cost savings based on cost of consumer cellular single line 5 gigabyte data plan with unlimited talk and text compared to lowest cost single line postpaid unlimited talk, text, and data plan offered by T-Mobile and Verizon May 2023.
Pass it on. You've heard it said, he's a diamond in the rough. Or maybe, diamonds are forever. Here's something else I've learned about diamonds. They're just pieces of coal put under pressure for a long, long, long time. So when I start feeling like I want to give up, I think about that little piece of coal. And if that piece of coal can make something of itself by not giving up, so can I. Persistence is in you. Pass it on. From PassItOn.com.
Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean. Of course I use Mr. Clean Magic Eraser to clean tough messes off my stovetop and bathtub. But then I discovered I can also use it to easily clean my patio furniture and even my shoes. I'm hooked.
And when wipes won't cut it, I use Magic Eraser Sheets. They're thin and flexible erasers, perfect for everyday messes, like gunk on my counters and sinks. They really are magical.
The reviews are in. Mr. Clean Magic Eraser and Sheets make cleaning look easy.
This is Larry Steinhaus of Investor Schooling. I am so proud to announce the continuing success of our students at Investor Schooling. You already know that at Investor Schooling, we teach real estate investing and stock options. Did you also know that we teach things about tax savings, estate planning, and business coaching as well? We teach things about money I bet you never knew. At Investor Schooling, we teach from the perspective of true experience. If you want to see what our students think about Investor Schooling, please check out the over 160 5-star Google reviews. To find out more about how you can change your financial life, go to investorschooling.com or call 866-424-2829. That's 866-424-2829, and you can attend a complimentary class this Thursday at 7 p.m. Attend that class and see for yourself what Investor Schooling is all about. Go to investorschooling.com or call 866-424-2829. That's 866-424-2829. We can't wait to see you this Thursday.
WPHT, WPHT-HD, WOGL HD3 Philadelphia. From the Cherry Hill Volvo Studios, where relationships matter. Always live on the free Odyssey app. Live and local with Matt Rooney on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT.
Welcome back, old friends, new frenemies, and all who lie elsewhere, somewhere in between on the spectrum that is life. I am Matt Rooney. This is the Matt Rooney Show, beginning hour number 2 of 3 here on 1210 WPHT this evening. Having fun, refusing to apologize for it. 855-839-1210 is the number, and I have more wonderful news for you all. We are now live streaming over on the YouTubes. YouTube.com/@1210 WPHT. Henry and Kirk and the team use their incredible skills and powers. I had a discussion with them kind of like Don Corleone in Godfather after Sonny gets lit up at the toll booth. I want to use all your skills, all your powers. And they went and they fixed the stream. And I'm up and I look as good as I ever do, which you have to grade on a scale. But for those of you that are listening via the radio, the old-fashioned way, you can now head over to YouTube and confirm that I am indeed as handsome as I sound. The comments can sometimes get lively too, which is always an added bonus.
Oh, they're lively, all right.
They can be. Yeah, people comment on what I'm wearing, my lighting, everything, and I appreciate most of it. I can handle constructive criticism. I can even handle the non-constructive type of criticism, so long as it's at least somewhat on point. That's what I'm going for, which is a relatively low bar. So youtube.com/@1210 WPHT if you want to consume the program that way. Had a busy first hour, plenty more still lying ahead. In this hour, we have a guest who's calling in. Heads up, Henry, by the way, because I usually give Henry a heads up. Our friend Alex Zidane, former News 12 reporter, journalist, will be joining us this evening. He just took a trip down to the border to investigate for himself and see for himself this chaos which has been unfolding in the southwestern United States, which obviously has impact for the rest of the country well beyond those border states and border communities. Alex is also kind of, sort of, we may talk to him about this, a candidate for U.S. Senate this year in New Jersey. He wants to replace Gold Bar Bob or whatever Democrat they ultimately decide to put up there in his place, because Bob we just had a poll this week, by the way, guys. He's polling at about 5%, 7%, something like that.
That high?
Right. Yeah. It's basically paid staff and family at this point. So for corrupt Hudson County Paul like Bob Menendez, that's still a lot of people.
That's Gold Bar Bob.
Yeah. Gold Bar Bob. Yeah. So, and this is delicious, actually, while we're on the subject. Let me navigate through my stack here to find it. Where's the poll? So for those of you that don't follow New Jersey politics obsessively like I do, this is the sad state of the Democrat primary. Alex is going to join us. He's one of the Republicans seeking the nomination. Republicans, by the way, have not won a U.S. Senate seat outright in New Jersey since before Watergate. That's how bad things are in the dirty jurors where I call home. On the Democrat side, you've got Gold Bar Bob, who at the moment has decided to continue as if he's running for re-election. There hasn't been a formal announcement, but I mean, what else is the guy going to do if he leaves politics? He's got that high-maintenance wife of his who has no incentive to stay married to a senior citizen, fat, not too attractive, former elected official, twice indicted Democrat from Hudson County. So he's got to keep this going for as long as he can. The hustle must move forward. But he's polling terribly. You also have Andy Kim, who's a congressman from South Jersey, whose claim to fame, if you remember January 6th, at least, you'd like to forget it, but they never will let you. He went out in the aftermath of the Capitol Hill riot in a very well-tailored blue suit. I have to give him that much, and picked up trash in his blue suit. And someone took a photo. I'm sure his office had nothing to do with circulating this thing. And it ended up going viral online, and he kind of became the patron saint for aggrieved Democrat congressmen who want to do virtue signal about the events of that day. He is also seeking the Democrat nomination. And then last but certainly not least, the Queen Consort of King Philip the Unaccountable, as my friend Rich Zioli loves to call him, Phil Murphy, is seeking the Democrat nomination. What are her credentials other than being married to Phil Murphy? No one can tell you. They're alleging sexism, by the way. There's a number of stories out in New Jersey this week, New Jersey politics, about how Queen Tammy's inability to catch fire with the Democrat base is clearly because of sexism, the fact that she's a woman. Phil Murphy's leaned into this narrative saying, I bet if Phil was a man and I was married to her, then this would be going down differently. You can already sense that they know there's trouble for her candidacy, because even among Democrats who live by isms and the culture of victimization, and this is the world that they inhabit, they usually don't go there unless they think that they're losing. And this new poll would suggest that maybe Tammy Murphy is. She's not looking so inevitable. This survey, and I'll tweet this out, shows Tammy Murphy only receiving support from 1 in 5 likely Democrat voters in the U.S. Senate primary. 20% for those of you that learn math from the Teachers Union. Andy Kim is at 32%. And then Bob Menendez, as I already teased, is actually in this poll, he's at 9%. Booey for him, huh? What's interesting about this survey, Andy Kim, he's Korean American, for those who don't know. He appears to be winning in large part because of suburbanites, white suburbanites, who support him 47% to 15%. Dan Cassino, who is the director of the Fairleigh Dickinson poll, they conducted the survey, said the real fight here is between white liberals, who are largely backing Kim, and more moderate Black and Hispanic voters who are lining up behind Murphy. So interesting times over in the Garden State. Phil Murphy is in office until January 2026. He's a fairly powerful governor. New Jersey governors are always pretty powerful. It's the way our system is designed. What does it mean for his administration if his wife gets her clock cleaned in a Democrat primary this year? It's positively delicious. I'm not an Andy Kim fan, but it almost makes me want to temporarily change my registration and vote for him just to see them squirm. We also will be joined in the third hour of tonight's Matt Rooney Show by Rosemary Becky. She's a tax attorney. She is the founder and principal of Jersey First. It's a pro-tax reform organization. You may have seen something in the news this past week about how there's a bipartisan tax bill. They're going to increase the child tax credit. As we joked, whenever you hear the word bipartisan, you should instantly become suspicious and at least want to ask more questions. So when Rosemary joins us in the third hour, our 9 o'clock hour, that is exactly what we are going to do. Now, I also said in the beginning of the program, there's way too much to cover tonight. We're never going to get to it all. But I'd be remiss if I didn't talk at least a little bit about this NBC poll. We're talking New Jersey polls. How about this national survey that's out today, which is giving Democrats the sweats? And I'm not talking about a flattering glisten, Henry. I'm talking about that gross kind of sweat you get at a barbecue. And you're constantly walking around with your arms at your side like a T-Rex because you don't want people to see those giant pools under your pits.
Nope. Now we're not talking about meat sweats, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, because that's flattering.
Okay.
Yes.
Or what Chris Christie calls Tuesday.
Oh, you haven't heard much from him, by the way.
He's got to crawl under a rock after, that flub.
Where's he going to find a rock big enough? I don't think they make them.
What, Mount Kilimanjaro isn't good enough?
I was going to say, the rock is a mountain that he'd need to obscure his, tremendous backside. But yeah, he's laying low these days. Well, in the entire premise of Chris Christie's campaign was that Donald Trump was a sure loser in a matchup one-on-one with Joe Biden. No evidence at the time Chris Christie said that validated his assumption. And we're not seeing any more today now that Chris Christie is long out of the race. This NBC poll, I'm just going to give you some of the highlights here, kids. Joe Biden's approval rating, 37%. So we are now down in, to give you some historical perspective, George W. Bush post-Katrina territory. It's ugly. It's really ugly. Presidents usually don't get reelected when their numbers are that poor. Right track, wrong track. You hear a lot about the right track, wrong track numbers, the country going the right way or the wrong way. 22% say the United States is on the track heading in the right direction. 73%, 3/4 of the country say we're going in the wrong direction.
Who are these other people? Who's this other quarter? What country are they living in?
I think they're under the rock with Chris Christie. Probably desperately fighting with him for crumbs of food.
Or as one of the in the chat, one gentleman said, or woman said,
don't assume genders, Kirk.
A boulder.
A boulder. By the way, I generally like to think, if you're new to the program, and I think many of you are, if the latest news I hear is correct, I try to keep things relatively highbrow, even though we don't like to take ourselves too seriously around here. This is a safe space for Chris Christie fat jokes. I love them all. I want to hear them all. Can't get enough of them.
What was one of them you said on Kale's on Kale and Company?
Oh, and Kale and Company, Fatty McThunder.
That's
biscuits.
it.
Yeah,
that's it.
That's my name for him. And one of our listeners, I forget who it is, so I want to give you credit, but I can't pull it out of the back of my brain right now. Remember the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man from Ghostbusters?
Mm-hmm.
They put Christie's head on the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man and put McThunder biscuits on the hat.
Nice.
It was beautiful. I would frame that damn thing and hang it at my house.
What a meme that will be, and that posted all over social media.
Yes, he deserves all the ridicule.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
GOP nomination in this NBC poll, Kirk. Trump now has a 60-point lead.
Yikes.
Okay. And in the head-to-head against Joe Biden, 47 to 42%, 5 points, which is, I remind our listeners regularly on this program, because I think there's some confusion in how the state polling interacts with the national polling. If a Republican wins in 2024 by 5 points nationally, that's going to be an electoral college landslide. Forget about the state polling. You don't need to get that far, because it's going to be a full-on electoral massacre in the GOP's favor. That's a red wave. But even if you look at the state polling, Georgia, Trump up 7 points. State he lost last time. Wisconsin Lost that in 2021 and 2016. He's up 0.2 just by a sliver, right? But a lead's a lead. Arizona, 4.5%. Nevada, 7 points. Trump lead. That'd be a major coup. Michigan, another one of those states that seesaw between 2016 and 2020. Trump up 5 points. Pennsylvania, you intransigent Pennsylvanians, I love you. You're my neighbors as a New Jerseyan. Biden up 0.3. So swing state as ever. Pennsylvania, purple Pennsylvania, making us sweat until the very end. But I got news for you. He doesn't need the Keystone State if he wins those other states I just referenced a moment ago.
I don't think PA has been red since, what, 88?
Well, until 2016.
Were they in 2016?
Yeah, Pennsylvania. Oh, I will remember that as long as I live.
I was just a child.
You were a wee babe.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember watching the dominoes fall, and the minute that they called Pennsylvania for Trump, I nearly fell out of my chair. That was something. Not just because of the obvious historic character of that moment, Trump's victory, but as you just said, it hadn't happened in a long time. So these are extremely bad numbers for Joe Biden. And yes, I get it. It's February, right? We've got a long way to go, but you are going to hear more and more and more and more as the days proceed here, unless these numbers start to change, calls for Joe Biden to drop out, or at least questions as to whether or not he's going to do it, because November is rapidly approaching. 855-839-1210 is the number. I am Matt Rooney. This is the Matt Rooney Show. Quick break, and back with more of our second hour in a moment. Don't go anywhere.
Time to finally lose that weight the safe and natural way with NJ Diet. Their results are nearly twice as fast as weight loss injections and without any of those nasty side effects. With NJ Diet, you will lose 20 to 40 plus pounds in only 40 days, contractually guaranteed. Then NJ Diet uses DNA info to help you keep the weight off. No hormones, no prepackaged foods, no shots. Call 855-5NJ-DIET or schedule your consult at njdiet.com. That's njdiet.com.
Hi, it's Ian Bush. If you're looking for that perfect piece of furniture, you have to check out Bucks County Estate Traders. They have the largest in-stock inventory in the region, and I mean largest, enough to fill a 58,000 square foot showroom. Quality, high-end furniture and accessories, modern, traditional, mid-century, all types of European styles, current pieces, as well as antiques. They'll arrange to ship anywhere, or you can pick up in store. So visit them on Bethlehem Pike in Hatfield or at buckscountyestatetraders.com.
When you're still looking for love, Valentine's Day sucks. Every restaurant is fully booked. Suddenly all chocolates are heart-shaped and all the PDA. Thankfully, California Psychics can give you the guidance you need to find the one. We guarantee if your reading isn't life-changing, it's free. And new customers receive 20 minutes for just $20. Visit CaliforniaPsychics.com and experience the joy of certainty. California Psychics.
As an educator, Mr. Nelson's teachings are still being quoted in schools.
Education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world.
Mr. Nelson taught hope.
Everyone can rise above their circumstances if they are dedicated and passionate.
And giving our best efforts.
It's always impossible until it's done.
Mr. Nelson Mandela's teachings not only united a nation, they inspire us today. Inspiration. Pass it on from passiton.com.
For a complete list of Talk Radio 1210 WPHT's contest rules, go to 1210WPHT.com/rules.
If you're facing $10,000, $20,000, or even $30,000 or more in credit card debt, medical bills, or other unsecured debt, there are programs available that can consolidate those debts into one single reduced monthly payment you can afford if you qualify. Accredited Debt Relief is on a mission to help you become debt-free in just 24 to 48 months. They've helped over 300,000 qualified consumers. Hardworking Americans just like you pay off more than $3 billion in debt, earning them an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau. Accredited Debt Relief will tailor the program to fit your specific budget and financial situation. So call Accredited Debt Relief now for your free no-obligation savings estimate and let them help you take control of your financial destiny.
Call 800-663-1313. 800-663-1313. That's 800-663-1313. 800-663-1313. Program and services not available in all states.
So, you got a new gadget over the holidays. Don't forget to listen to your favorite station on Odyssey. Unwrapped a new Amazon Echo or Google Home? Be sure to tell your smart speaker to play your favorite station. Received a new Sonos speaker? Check on Odyssey on the Sonos app for access to hundreds of stations. Got a new phone? Don't forget that the Odyssey app is the only way you can jump to your favorite show with Rewind. No matter what you received this year, listen to your favorites with Odyssey. Download the free Odyssey app today. AUDACY.
Hey, Southampton. We know your favorite station is Talk Radio 1210 WPHT.
Looking around the house, hidden behind the window and the door, searching for signs of life, but there's nobody home.
I always like this one.
Ah.
I know what you're thinking, Kirk. I missed my career as a singer. I could have been backup for T Swift.
I'm impressed. I give you.
You're such a bad liar. Oh God.
I'll give you a C+. How's that?
Oh well, that's probably generous, the C+, but I'll take it.
All right.
I'll take it. Whatever passes me out of class, right?
Exactly right.
Back on the Matt Rooney Show here, folks. 855-839-1210. I told you at least the broad strokes, the headlines of the NBC poll out today showing Joe Biden getting effectively clobbered as we rapidly approach D-Day for election 2024. I know there's a lot of time left to play out, and these polls can and will change. But remember, as time goes on, polls can harden because the opportunity for transformative events drops off. Case in point, we are told day in, day out by the establishment media how wonderful the economy is. And yet, when you look at these surveys, and the NBC poll is no different, you have overwhelming majorities of Americans. In the NBC poll, I believe it's 60+% of Americans saying that the economy is poor, and they give Joe Biden very low ratings for his handling of the economy. It's because things have gotten to the point where they can't obscure it anymore. That's really what a lot of this boils down to. Joe Biden's weakness, his failures, his inability to rise to the occasion. It's not something that they can brush up for him, despite their best efforts and despite having almost hegemonic control of the means of communication in this country. Yeah, maybe your wages went up this year, but you're still 2-3% below where you were when Joe Biden became president, right? And on top of that, you may have heard of inflation. I went to the supermarket today. I noticed this today because sometimes I order them in advance on an app and then I pick them up, right? They bring it out to your car. It's the saddest darn thing, and it's subtle. At the bottom, it says, hey, now available, you can have a payment plan for your groceries. And I'm sure people are using it. Do you really expect the president to do well in terms of his job approval rating when Americans are needing to use payment plans for their groceries? So it's not a mystery why Joe Biden is in trouble. The question is, what can happen between now and November for him to have an opportunity to change the perception that he's a failure? Or at some point, maybe it's today, maybe it's tomorrow, maybe it's on the floor of the DNC convention, did they decide to make a last-minute switcheroo? Stay tuned. Another reason Joe Biden is performing extremely poorly is, of course, what's happening down at the border. It's an absolute chaos. We hear about it all the time on the news. Well, one of my buddies actually just went down there to see the chaos firsthand. And when I saw him tweeting about it over on X, or Xing about it, posting about it, whatever we call it now, I texted him and said, hey, you got to come on the show tonight to share with our listeners exactly what you saw. So without further ado, former News 12 reporter, he is a New Jersey journalist. He's one of the only guys that even attempted to hold Phil Murphy and his administration accountable back during the COVID-19 pandemic. Alex Zidane, he joins us now on 1210 WPHT. Alex, welcome back from the Southwest.
Great to be with you.
Well,
Thank
great.
you so much. Thank you.
So I'm going to ask you this very directly here. Is it as bad as what's being reported?
I think it's worse. It actually is worse. I was surprised at the extent. Obviously, I couldn't go to the entire border. I went to a section in Nogales, Arizona.
Okay.
But I was surprised at the fact that I went to a spot about a mile from the port of entry, so not very far. And there is a gaping hole in the border wall where people are coming through. Border Patrol telling me in this one spot, hundreds of people every day are passing through this area. And in doing a little bit more digging and investigating, I found out that this section is left over. It was an uncompleted section of President Trump's border wall that President Biden shut down as soon as he got into office. And it's been this way for 4 years.
It's hard to get the scale from looking at your photo, and I'll retweet this for our listeners that are following online. Matt Rooney NJ, by the way, and Alex is actual Alex Z, if you want to check it out. It looks like it's, I don't know, what is that, 100 yards, the size of that gap? It's pretty sizable.
Yeah, I mean, I think the wall itself was probably about 30 feet, just based on me eyeballing it. And, you obviously could fit quite a few people through there. I jumped over the rebar and I decided to take a little jaunt into Mexico to see how easy it was to go back and forth. It was pretty easy. And I could see when I was on the Mexican side, there's a well-worn path through a grove of trees. And you can see some of the migrants, they pause, they wait, then they move in. And we had multiple groups coming through, just dozens and dozens of people who were all taking this well-worn path from wherever they're coming from in Mexico to Nogales. And here's the amazing thing, Matt, is that I expected to see maybe a foot pursuit, maybe people fleeing. They don't flee. The migrants stand in groups on the trail by the border wall, and they wait to be picked up like they're waiting for a bus. These migrants know what to do. They know the system. And in fact, Senator Kyrsten Sinema, a Democrat, even tonight admits that, yes, the asylum system is being misused. It's being gained by the cartels and by others. And you know that if a Democrat like Senator Sinema admits that, things are pretty bad.
Yeah, it definitely seems as if the center is shifted on this one. We've talked about plenty in recent weeks about even some blue state, blue jurisdiction mayors, governors now are beginning to change their tune when it comes to sanctuary statehood. And you mentioned seeing groups down there. One of the things that you posted on X, and I've seen this reported elsewhere, is how these groups are predominantly not family groups. So maybe there's mom, dad, some uncles, some kids. They're there, of course, but it's often adult males in groups. And I've seen it reported, and maybe you can verify this, that they tend to be military age. So they're late teens, 20s, 30s, coming in mass to the United States across the border.
I saw both. I did see families. There were some families there with children, but there was also one of the first groups that I saw was a group of about 6 to 8 of those males in that age category that you just mentioned that sort of crept under the wall in a group as if they were all moving together. And you certainly see when you have these people who show up, some of them just choose to walk together out of safety's sake. They're not related. They don't know each other. You're not sure what kind of affiliation they have and if somebody is able to sort of slip in and use these groups of people for cover to get into this country. Because like I saw when I hopped over into Mexico and then hopped back, it's shockingly easy to go back and forth over that border.
And you saw some coyotes, or at least I guess you thought they were coyotes, right? Scoping things out.
Coyotes are the scouts of the coyotes. Sure. When you, Border Patrol actually pointed them out to me, is that there's the town of Nogales, Mexico, on the other side, which is a small but heavily populated town. But right above the town's kind of in a little bowl. And so there's a ridge line right up atop the Mexican side of this town. And you can see the scouts, the coyotes, poking their heads up over to scan the area by the wall to see where the Border Patrol are and see what's happening. And perhaps, I guess, see where the federales are before they try and sneak people across.
It has to be such a weird sensation for you. And as a journalist, you've been on scene reporting and I'm sure shootings and other grisly occurrences back up here in New Jersey. But to stand down there at the border when there's an active invasion going on within viewing distance of coyotes who are involved in bringing fentanyl into the country, sex trafficking. I mean, it has to make the hairs on the back of your neck stand up at least a little bit, even for a veteran journalist like yourself.
The only time the hairs on the back of my neck stood up was when I attempted, in the middle of a 2-day rainstorm, to go up a mountain road with no guardrail and a steep trail to try and find an Arizona border ghost town. Less said about that, the better. But I'm obviously back here in one piece. Look, it's for me. For me, I feel for the Border Patrol agents that are out there. These folks who are risking life and limb, obviously, because there could be a confrontation. These Border Patrol agents who have had to play nurse, play daycare, had to be supervisors, have had to be essentially escorts for these individuals. They have so many roles that they're being demanded to play in this crisis because of this situation that I think that their professionalism has really been pretty amazing to me. All the Border Patrol agents that I got a chance to talk to were just cool and as nice as could be and really did not care that, some guy was just hanging out and taking a look at what was going on. I think, in fact, they appreciated the attention to look at what they're doing and how they're approaching this crisis because, I'm not really a journalist anymore. I'm exploring a run for political office. That's why I'm there. I still have my journalist skills. I want to go to where the story is, where the action is. But obviously I'm somebody who's trying to find solutions and trying to look and see what the problem is and put fresh eyes on it and see what others might have missed.
So, as you explore this stuff, clearly, as you mentioned a moment ago, you're a journalist. So it's not as if you started thinking about this issue yesterday, right? What are some of the solutions? I mean, the most obvious one to me seems to be enforcing the laws that we already have in the books. Joe Biden is pretending he needs some sort of authorization from Republicans in the House. That's not my reading of the state of play. You tell me if you think I'm wrong. But where do we start to fix this?
The president has the constitutional authority to shut down the border tomorrow. He won't. The reason he won't is that the methods he would need to employ to shut the border down would raise the hackles and acquire the ire of his progressive base who he desperately needs to be reelected. If the president says he would shut down the border tomorrow, he's bluffing. He can't. The amount of manpower that it would take to truly do that would be something that would shock his very easily offended progressive base. And to truly secure the border, he would have to start becoming the new wall builder. And we all know that Biden and his base and Vice President Harris will never allow that to happen.
Yeah, it'd be just too much irony for our friends on the left. Their brains would absolutely not explode; they would implode were that to ever happen. Which is why I think they're having so much trouble messaging on this whole thing. After spending years accusing anyone who advocated for more border security of being a xenophobe, a bigot, whatever, now they find themselves in a position where their own Democrats, like let's take John Fetterman here in Pennsylvania, across the river from you and I. There's someone who is objectively left of center. He's a pretty liberal guy. On immigration now, he sounds sort of kind of like a Republican.
Matt, a line on a map is not racist. It's a line on a map. That's our border. Been that way for a while. It's not going anywhere. And we need to make sure that we are respecting the sovereignty of that border and making sure others respect the sovereignty of those borders. And I would also say, based on what I saw, to Democratic friends, progressive friends, liberal friends, that securing the border makes it safer for everyone, including the migrants, because they are putting themselves into these situations because they know they can cross the border.
Right.
And if you shut down that avenue for them, I would imagine that dramatically fewer of them would try and come, or at least they would be easier to stop.
No, it's a really good point, and we've said that before in this program. The victims, the major victims, the prime victims of coyotes and sex traffickers and all these other awful people that are exploiting the chaos at the border are other immigrants from vulnerable populations who are being preyed upon by criminal networks and Joe Biden, bears responsibility for it. Ultimately, the buck stops with him. Let's talk about this U.S. Senate bid for a moment. We mentioned earlier in the program that new poll out of Fairleigh Dickinson University, and this soon out, this far out from the election. I know we have to take polls with a grain of salt, but Tammy Murphy trailing Andy Kim, which is a little bit of a surprise for some folks. Maybe not you, because you followed the Murphys and you covered them very closely, that maybe their act is finally wearing thin. On the Republican side of the ledger, I know that there hasn't been a formal announcement from you, but because of the way New Jersey politics works, you've filed in 2 counties for consideration by local Republicans. I think 100 and Somerset, correct?
It's actually more than that. I'll put it this way to you, Matt. I've made my decision, and you will hear about it this coming week.
Oh, check that out, boys. Breaking news. We get it from time to time here on the Matt Rooney Show. All right, excellent. So you're going to make a big decision this week. I won't ask you to give me an exclusive, Alex, although it's the least you could do, darn it. But
you
tell
did make me, Matt.
Tell me what it is that catalyzed your decision. We'll let people speculate for now what it is. But
Sure.
You just got back from the border. There's many issues and many storylines right now percolating in our country. What is it that helped you make your decision?
Well, I think you have to read into the fact that I'm telling you this after I've come back from the border. I recognize what a serious issue the border is. Anyone who is serious recognizes the weight and the impact of the decisions that have been made, the failed policy at the southern border, and the fact that now, because these buses are dropping people off, because we see that our state has had probably over 3,000 migrants at the very least pass through, at the very least that we know of, just within the last few weeks. It is true. Every state has become a border state because this crisis affects all of us everywhere. And I can't let any of this go by without mentioning just the sheer amount of corruption between Bob Menendez and Tammy Murphy that absolutely plays into my decision, because corruption truly offends me because it offends voters, because it deprives people of their right to freely choose when machine politicians like Phil and Tammy Murphy try to rig a Senate election, and someone like Bob Menendez is taking gold bars and God knows what else.
Yeah, right. God knows what else. We may find out between now and the trial, but it sounds like we won't have to wait that long to find out concerning the fate of Alex Zidane. Tune in this week, folks. You can head over to actual Alex Z over on X. And Alex, remind us what your website is. You have a new website.
Yes, I do. Yes, thank you. alex4nj.com. Sign up for updates there, and you'll be the first to know everything.
Look, regardless of what he decides to do, it's always an interesting follow, as evidenced by his photojournalism down there at the border. I know we are going to be tuning in to find out what happens. And either way, my friend, we'll pull you back on the show plenty between now and November to pick your brain, if that's all right with you.
Absolutely. Anytime, man. Alex
Zidane, everyone, former reporter for News 12. I'm going to say probable candidate for U.S. Senate here on the Matt Rooney Show on 1210 WPHT. Let's take a break to play some ads, and we'll be back with more in a sec.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
This story is called The Ugly Truth About Timeshare. If you think you've done your family a favor by buying a timeshare, you need my help. Hello, I'm Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group. 10 years ago, I started helping folks cancel their timeshare. In the process, started what's now called the timeshare cancellation industry. The ugly truth is when you buy a timeshare, you can't tell me how much it's going to cost or when it's going to end. I recently helped a couple that had their maintenance fees go from $800 to $3,200 a year. They also received a $4,000 assessment for a hurricane that was over 1,000 miles away. Sound crazy? The crazy thing is this never ends. Call my office now. If we take you as a client, I guarantee we'll cancel your timeshare or you'll pay nothing.
Call for your free information kit. Call 800-329-2121. That's 800-329-2121. 800-329-2121.
The IRS finally caught up with Louie.
I hadn't paid my taxes in 8 years. I owed the IRS a lot of money.
Louie was in deep trouble.
We're going to take your house, put a lien on your bank account, garnish your pay. They don't care. They're going to take your paycheck.
Louie found out about Optima Tax Relief, the leading tax resolution firm. A-plus rated by the Better Business Bureau, they've resolved over $1 billion for their clients.
Optima Tax, they helped me. They calmed me down. They made me feel comfortable, and I trust them.
Louie has a lot to be thankful for.
I don't owe the IRS anymore, and I'm able to live a comfortable life, a lot better life. It was because of Optima Tax.
For tax help you can trust, call Optima now for a free consultation. Take it from Louie.
If you owe the IRS, don't go it alone. Give Optima Tax a call. They can help you.
Call 800-354-2840. 800-354-2840. 800-354-2840.
Optima Tax Relief.
Testimonial from an actual client. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
When you're still looking for love, Valentine's Day sucks. Every restaurant is fully booked. Suddenly, all chocolates are heart-shaped, and all the PDA. Thankfully, California Psychics can give you the guidance you need to find the one. We guarantee if your reading isn't life-changing, it's free. And new customers receive 20 minutes for just $20. Visit CaliforniaPsychics.com and experience the joy of certainty. California Psychics.
As an educator, Mr. Nelson's teachings are still being quoted in schools.
Education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world.
Mr. Nelson taught hope
Everyone can rise above their circumstances if they are dedicated and passionate.
and giving our best efforts.
It's always impossible until it's done.
Mr. Nelson Mandela's teachings not only united a nation, they inspire us today. Inspiration. Pass it on from PassItOn.com.
Hi, this is Dom Giordano. Celebrate American Heart Month with Rescue Natural Supplements. For over 38 years, Rescue brand omega-3s have been providing people with the essentials to fortify heart health, reduce inflammation, and support healthy cholesterol levels. That's why it's the best time to dive into Rescue's February special. Right now, Rescue's most popular products, their premium omega-3 fish oil supplements, are buy one, get one free exclusively for American Heart Month. Just use the listener code OMEGA50 when placing your order. Call today at 800-26-LIVE, 800-262-5483. Speak to a knowledgeable product consultant or use the code OMEGA50 online when you visit res-q.com. Don't forget the code OMEGA50 when you buy one bottle of a Rescue Omega-3 to receive a second bottle free. Again, use the code OMEGA50. Fortify your heart with the Rescue Omega-3.
Hi, it's Ian Bush. If you're looking for that perfect piece of furniture, you have to check out Bucks County Estate Traders. They have the largest in-stock inventory in the region, and I mean largest, enough to fill a 58,000 square foot showroom. Quality, high-end furniture and accessories, modern, traditional, mid-century, all types of European styles, current pieces, as well as antiques. They'll arrange to ship anywhere, or you can pick up in store. So visit them on Bethlehem Pike in Hatfield or at buckscountyestatetraders.com.
Feel like everything's clouded by doubt? Visit CaliforniaPsychics.com. Our psychics are available to talk 24/7, and we guarantee if it's not life-changing, it's free. Experience the joy of certainty. California Psychics.
Her words weren't written under peaceful shade, but under fear for her life.
I don't think of all the misery, but of the beauty that still remains.
The words of Anne Frank continue to fill us with hope. Hope. Pass it on from PassItOn.com.
Follow Talk Radio 1210 on Instagram and Facebook at 1210 WPHT.
You know how things are truly getting difficult for Fannie Willis? You have commentators over at MSNBC starting to throw her under the bus. Kind of, sort of. I don't frequent MSNBC.com because I value my brain cells and I don't want to destroy them. But this is from Anthony, I guess it's either Cooley or Colley, writing for MSNBC. A little bit of a warning here, a trigger warning up front. This may make you vomit a little bit in your mouth. But you need to stick through it because it makes an important point. Okay. This is from Anthony Colley. A disclaimer up front. I am a huge Fani Willis fan. I love everything about the Fulton County, Georgia District Attorney, her confidence, her way of arguing in court, the trailblazing nature of her role as the first Black woman DA there. History will fondly remember Willis if she can deftly handle her immediate crisis, unwinding the arrangement in which she hired an outside lawyer with whom she is romantically linked to help prosecute her election conspiracy case against former President Donald Trump. That counts as serious shade over at MSNBC when they're talking about a fellow lefty. I mentioned a little bit earlier in the program how the polling for Joe Biden is looking abysmal. And one of the places that it's looking particularly dire relative to 2020 is Georgia, where now Trump is up about 7 points in the RCP average. There's a reason why, because they knew they had trouble with the orange man this time around either way because of the economy, because of the situation overseas, because of immigration, a veritable cascade of domestic and foreign policy disasters on Joe Biden's watch. Besides the fact that every time he's on television, he goes back and forth, our commander-in-chief, seesawing between looking like he's lost and looking like he pooped his pants. It's depends on the day, depends on the event, right? Their only hope was to try to put Donald Trump in jail. And something else that NBC poll that we've been talking about this hour elicits is allegedly if Donald Trump is convicted of a felony, he's deserted by unaffiliated and independent voters. He's still within the margin of error with Joe Biden, which in the Electoral College is still probably a Joe Biden loss. But it moves from advantage Trump back to a jump ball. So this, Jack Smith's ridiculousness in Washington, D.C., as a sideshow, what's happening in New York, this is their electoral strategy. They don't have an answer to what's happening at the border. They don't have an answer for inflation, right? They don't have an answer for the fires that Joe Biden is either actively setting or allowed to fester all across the globe as we sit here tonight. Our men and women in arms, in uniform, are currently imperiled by the lack of leadership coming from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, right? All of that, all of those many disasters, those concerns the American people have, they do not have on the Democrat side of the ledger a response to any of it. There's no hiding it. There's no disguising it. All they can do is try to do what these dictators they supposedly hate make a practice of doing, which is jail the opposition. And they're failing. And so Fani Willis and her, let's just call this what it is. She's accused of sleeping with this guy, right? Romantically linked. Romantically linked is like, sending somebody a Valentine's card, right? We're coming up on the Hallmark holiday here, right? Now, it's a little bit more than that if what's being reported is indeed accurate, right? She's got ethical problems herself. How can she stand in judgment of Donald Trump when her own ethics are being actively obliterated before our eyes? But even MSNBC will now turn on her because that flank of their lawfare attack against the former president is crumbling, and it's her fault, right? They're not going to get the mileage out of this one that they hoped because now she has become the story. So I'm all here for it. I love it because bad people deserve to fail, and I like watching bad people fail. You should like seeing bad people fail. Karma is a real force in our universe, and when it plays out, it's a beautiful thing. So we'll see where that goes. 855-839-1210, by the way, is the number here at the station. And we do have the live stream up. YouTube.com/@1210WPHT, where you can watch the show as well as listen to it. I would be remiss as well this evening, since this is the first show in February here on the Matt Rooney program, if we didn't acknowledge that this is Black History Month. Henry, you're supposed to remind me of these things. Kirk's newer to the program, so I'm not going to blame him for not bringing it up. Speaking of Hallmark holidays.
Yeah, I thought you'd be on the ball more than I would. I mean, you're a lawyer. You should know what month it is.
Great defense there, Henry. Don't you have a calendar, Matt?
And there goes the bus.
There you go. We should have said something about Black History Month, and we completely blew it. Remembering that it was Black History Month before I came on this evening, I was reminded of a awesome Morgan Freeman clip. I think we have this one. It's cut number 2. This is Morgan Freeman in 2005 speaking to Mike Wallace of 60 Minutes about Black History Month. And let's be clear about something, and you probably know this. Morgan Freeman is no conservative, right? But in this moment of mind-bending honesty, Morgan Freeman said what needed to be said about Black History Month, and every attempt that's made by the culture to artificially divide us and break us up into groups and in boxes based upon superficialities like the pigment of our skin. It was a great moment, and it was made all the better by the fact that Mike Wallace looked like he was going to swallow his tongue. So let's take a quick trip back in time to 2005. Enjoy.
Black History Month you find ridiculous. Why? You're going to relegate my history to a month? Oh, come on. What do you do with yours? Which month is White History Month? No, well, come on, tell me.
Well, I'm Jewish.
Okay, which month is Jewish History Month?
There isn't one.
Oh, why not?
Yeah.
Do you want one?
No.
I don't either. I don't want a Black History Month. Black history is American history.
How are we going to get rid of racism?
Stop talking about it. I'm going to stop calling you a white man.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you to stop calling me a black man. I know you as Mike Wallace. You know me as Morgan Freeman. You're going to say, well, I know this white guy named Mike Wallace. You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
I mean, talk about a mic drop moment. What else can be said? Although I can't help but wonder, Henry, you're a Gen Zer. Your generation, and you took, I always forget, is it the blue pill or the red pill that wakes you up? I think it's the red pill, right? Yeah. So you're red pilled. So this doesn't qualify. You don't qualify for this statement. But your generation has successfully, I think, in many respects, been brainwashed by the education establishment to see everything in terms of race, right? So this is from 2005 when I was your age, right? And I was hoping things were going to move in that direction. I don't think it's happened. Do you think that this resonates with a 25-year-old, what Morgan Freeman said a moment ago?
I think increasingly, yeah. I think a lot of people are being red-pilled and woken up as to, what the kind of messaging we're receiving. And I think a statement like that, would probably resonate with a lot of younger people.
Do you think they're starting to see the disconnect between the rhetoric and the results?
Yes.
And for what it's worth, I mean, there are polls out there, and I hate talking this much about polls because we all know they've failed us. There are polls that suggest that, in particular, a lot of young black men are gravitating towards, if not the Republican Party, towards Donald Trump this time around. And you can't help but think if maybe some of that is because of what Morgan Freeman's talking about right here. He doesn't come right out and say it. He touches the tip of it. But enough with the rhetoric, enough with the condescension. Do something for us. Don't just use us as a pawn, right? Actually accomplish something for Black America and make us part of America. That's what I think fundamentally most people want. They want to be part of this grand American experiment. They want access to opportunity. They don't want to be reduced to a Hallmark card 1 month a year.
It's the old phrase, what, right? I just lost it. Actions speak louder than words.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's so old that we can't keep a hand on it. But no, you're right. So maybe there is some of that going on out there. Maybe I should be a little bit more optimistic. Matt Rooney here on the Matt Rooney Show, already 2 hours behind us, but we still have 1 hour left to go and plenty still to cover. We're going to do the best we can. We always do here on 1210 WPHT. Stay tuned. Head over to youtube.com/@1210 WPHT. Give us a like. And as soon as I fill my coffee mug, we'll be back to round out our program.
At California Psychics, we know that when you're still looking for love, Valentine's Day sucks. Every restaurant is fully booked, even the average ones. Suddenly all chocolates are heart-shaped. and all the PDA. Thankfully, California Psychics can give you the guidance you need to help you find the one. We connect you with the very best. In fact, 98% of the psychics who apply to work with us don't make the grade. That's why we can guarantee if your reading isn't life-changing, it's free. Download the app or connect with us at CaliforniaPsychics.com. Right now, new customers receive 20 minutes for just $20. So you could be flaunting your love life in public real soon. Experience the joy of certainty. California Psychics.
Don't miss the Education Show with Dom Giordano every Sunday morning at 5:30. Find out how you can help your child or grandchild succeed. Sponsored by New Hope Academy.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
This story is called The Ugly Truth About Timeshare. If you think you've done your family a favor by buying a timeshare, you need my help. Hello, I'm Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group. 10 years ago, I started helping folks cancel their timeshare. In the process, started what's now called the timeshare cancellation industry. The ugly truth is when you buy a timeshare, you can't tell me how much it's going to cost or when it's going to end. I recently helped a couple that had their maintenance fees go from $800 to $3,200 a year. They also received a $4,000 assessment for a hurricane that was over 1,000 miles away. Sound crazy? The crazy thing is this never ends. Call my office now. If we take you as a client, I guarantee we'll cancel your timeshare or you'll pay nothing.
Call for your free information kit. Call 800-329-2121. That's 800-329-2121. 800-329-2121.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-575-6481. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. There is zero risk to you. If we can't reduce your tax debt, then you pay nothing. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have a 5-star rating on Google and Yelp and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-575-6481. That's 800-575-6481. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
This is Larry Steinhaus of Investor Schooling. I am so proud to announce the continuing success of our students at Investor Schooling. You already know that at Investor Schooling, we teach real estate investing and stock options. Did you also know that we teach things about tax savings, estate planning, and business coaching as well? We teach things about money I bet you never knew. At Investor Schooling, we teach from the perspective of true experience. If you want to see what our students think about Investor Schooling, please check out the over 160 5-star Google reviews. To find out more about how you can change your financial life, go to investorschooling.com or call 866-424-2829. That's 866-424-2829, and you can attend a complimentary class this Thursday at 7 p.m. Attend that class and see for yourself what Investor Schooling is all about. Go to investorschooling.com or call 866-424-2829. That's 866-424-2829. We can't wait to see you this Thursday.
Major phone carriers make you sign contracts with rigid data plans to trap you into a kind of forced phonogamy. Sounds pretty insecure if you ask me. At Consumer Cellular, we believe in a more consensual and healthy form of phonogamy, free of contracts and more flexible to your data needs. This way, you stick around not because we force you to with contracts and fees, but because you love our phone plans. Like ardently love our phone plans. Phonogamously. Consumer Cellular. When freedom calls, we're here to answer. Call us at 1-888-FREEDOM.
As an educator, Mr. Nelson's teachings are still being quoted in schools.
Education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world.
Mr. Nelson taught hope.
Everyone can rise above their circumstances if they are dedicated and passionate.
And giving our best efforts.
It's always impossible until it's done.
Mr. Nelson Mandela's teachings not only united a nation, they inspire us today. Inspiration. Pass it on from PassItOn.com.
WPHT, WPHT HD, WOGL HD3. Philadelphia. From the Cherry Hill Volvo Studios, where relationships matter. Always live on the free Odyssey app. Live and local with Matt Rooney on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT.
This is it. Hour 3 of 3 here on the Matt Rooney Show. Trace of Trace for our bilingual listeners. If you're impressed, don't pretend otherwise. Here on the Matt Rooney Show on 1210 WPHT, where we attempt to fit more content into 3 hours every Sunday night than the CDC says is safe, but we do it anyway because we don't baby you around here. Whether you want to wear no mask or 16 masks, you do you. My unapologetic goal is to inform you. Maybe we entertain you along the way. But I can tell you this much, and you can take this to the bank. I will stand by this promise. You will have more fun and gain more actual value from this show than you will watching the Grammys. So if you are listening right now, either to the radio, the old-fashioned way, or via the Odyssey app, or if you're streaming us on YouTube, you are having more fun than watching a bunch of overpaid entertainers hang out on a red carpet, peddling their inane nonsense and giving each other awards. When's the last time, Kirk, you actually watched an award show?
Oh, it's been years.
Yeah.
It's been years.
Henry, have you ever watched an award show?
From start to finish? No.
No.
Never.
Now, when I was a kid in the 80s and 90s, I remember the Oscars were something that was a major television event, not on the same level as the Super Bowl, but most people watch it or at least part of it.
Oh, absolutely. I was mesmerized with the how it, yeah, that was me. I was like engrossed in from start to finish, including the commercials. I was like,
you were there for it.
I was there for it. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe it has something to do with the quality of the films. Like even more recently, 2000 Gladiator with Russell Crowe, right? Back when the movies were still, Henry's making a stink face. You didn't like Gladiator?
It's good. It's not great.
The movie?
Yeah. I like the scene, my name is Maximus Decimus Meridius. That scene's very good. It's very powerful, but I think the movie is just good.
Did you hear that they're making a sequel?
I did. I think Ridley's just going to try and get as many in while he still can.
That seems to be what's happening with that guy, right?
Yeah.
Maybe he got some bad news. I mean, I hope not.
Well, it's like him, Marty Scorsese. They just late in life now. They're like, you know what? I'm gonna make movies that I want. I don't care.
Yeah, which I respect that. I mean, both of those filmmakers, I mean, they don't need the money. They don't need the approval or adulation of anyone at this point. I guess they could fund their own projects for the most part if they wanted to.
And show of hands, how many do we honestly need another sequel? I mean, come on, why can't movies that come out should be original, like back in the 80s and 90s where it was original movies and there wasn't sequel after. Oh,
Studios don't want to take a chance. They want recycled IP that they know will drive ticket sales. It's hard to market new things because it's scary and it costs money. And
true,
no one's going to the theater like they used to.
True,
that's exactly right. Case in point, why we have 300 iterations of Batman now, and I am a Batman fan. I mean, my favorite superhero movie of all time is still Batman 1989. With
Likewise.
Jack Nicholson and Michael Keaton. I still think that they've done better since.
Mhm.
I'm probably biased because I was a kid when I saw it, right? But I think, Henry, you hit the nail on the head there. There's a lack of, and maybe there's a little bit of irony caked in there because Hollywood is so far left, right? Most of these people, at least they present as socialists. They want you to believe they believe in socialism.
Oh, without a doubt.
But they're the most ruthless, soulless capitalists you'll find on the planet. At least when it comes to this stuff, right? This isn't about art for them. This isn't about entertainment. It's about, as you say, Henry, this is an intellectual property that we believe we can squeeze a little bit more juice out of. So that's the strategy that we're going to pursue. Disney is the worst offender.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look what they're doing to Star Wars. Absolutely destroying it.
Yep. And that makes my point.
Yes.
And that's why they lean so heavily into like comic book stuff. Like you bring up Batman. Like the thing with Batman is there's different, comic series.
Yeah.
Different timelines, different storylines, things like that. And that's why they're able to make these new Batmans, and they trot that out once a decade saying, here it is, come and get it, because they know it's going to sell tickets.
Yep.
It's just a new actor, new story, new director.
Right. So, I mean, the Grammys, I'd imagine it's the same. I don't think I've ever watched a Grammys. I don't think I've watched an Oscars in over 10 years. The ratings generally for these award shows continue to plummet. Which in a way, I mean, not that Taylor Swift needs the attention or the money. You almost are going to kind of have some kind of marriage between yourself and a sports organization in the future if you're going to get the same attention from television that you used to get by going to an award show. So maybe you're going to see more of that as time goes on. I hope not, because like most people, I watch sports when I do watch sports because I want to escape from the culture. I don't want to get pulled back in it because God knows the culture is garbage. And speaking of art and culture and garbage, Nikki Haley over the weekend made a guest appearance on SNL. She's hardly the first politician to go on Saturday Night Live. Donald Trump has been on Saturday Night Live. I remember Bob Dole going on Saturday Night Live back in 1996 to appear alongside Norm Macdonald, rest in peace, one of the greats who portrayed him famously on that late night program. SNL is another thing that passed its peak, I would say probably about 15 years ago now, when the class that was Will Ferrell and Chris Kattan and who else was on that class? Tim Meadows.
Love Tim Meadows.
Right.
Molly Shannon. That
Anna Gasteyer, right? There was that whole crew. They were pretty funny. It's been all downhill since, with a couple notable exceptions. There's been some
I think there are some
talent,
good ones up until recently. I still think there's some good ones there.
but becoming fewer and
far between, sure.
In between. And now it's just
Kenan Thompson needs to go. I mean, he's been on that show for at least 2 decades.
He's a lifer.
Will you hire Kenan to do something? Will you? Because if not, he's not going anywhere.
Good point.
He can come hang out with us if he wants. I don't know if he's going to enjoy it very much, but it might be interesting.
Right.
Yeah, seriously.
But they needed new blood. That's what I'm saying. But to your point, Henry, you're right.
Well, I mean, he's got something in common with Nikki Haley, though. How long are you going to hang around before it becomes profoundly awkward, right? I mentioned earlier, NBC poll, she's losing by about 60 points nationally to Donald Trump, but there she is, still trying to make a go of this presidential campaign. I don't think she has any real prospect at this point of even having a cabinet post.
It's been awkward since the jump. So who are we kidding?
Well, that's correct. It was over before it began. But I mean, at this point, you have to draw the unflattering conclusion that she's just looking for the adulation of this entertainment culture, this complex that doesn't really like her, right? If she was the nominee, they would savage her. But because she's saying nasty things about Donald Trump, they're willing to clap for her and give her airtime on their stupid programs, just like they did for Chris Christie, just like they did for, name your rhino Republican, right? That is a never Trumper. There's a long, long, long list of them. And she's just the latest. But here's Nikki Haley's appearance on SNL, just in case you were curious. I doubt you watched it. I didn't watch it live either.
My question is, why won't you debate Nikki Haley?
Oh my God, it's her, the woman who was in charge of security on January 6th. It's Nancy Pelosi.
For the 100th time, that is not Nancy Pelosi. It is Nikki Haley.
Are you doing okay, Donald? You might need a mental competency test.
You know what I did? I took the test and I aced it, okay? Perfect score. They said I'm 100% mental. And, I'm competent because I'm a man. That's why a woman should never run our economy. Women are terrible with money. In fact, a woman I know recently asked me for $83.3 million.
And you've spent $50 million in your own legal fees. Do you need to borrow some money?
Oh, Nikki, don't do this, Nikki. Nikki Tiki Tawi. Nikki, don't lose that number. Nikki Haley, Joel Osment. Nikki Haley, Joel Osment, we call her. 6 cents. Remember that one? I see dead people.
Yeah, that's what voters will say if they see you and Joe on the ballot.
Oh, that's not very nice, Nikki. It's not nice. And I'm always very nice to you, except when I'm implying you weren't born in this country. Even though you're from South Carolina, and now I'm going to beat you in your state.
Look, many of my favorite actors, comedians, artists, whatever, do not share my politics. I still enjoy the heck out of them. It's not funny content, right?
There's a couple in there.
No, there was a couple in there
that
that were okay.
Yeah, there was a few.
I thought the impression itself was okay.
Solid.
But did you think it was as funny as that audience?
No.
Mm-mm.
Absolutely not.
It's a bunch of New York lefties who in no way reflect the country as a whole, just enjoying hating on the man that is about to become their president, if you believe the polls, for the second time. And, listen, they made a joke about Donald Trump saying that women don't spend money. Well, I'm not going to say that about women as a whole. I'm not going to paint with a broad brush. Nikki Haley Super PAC spent, I think, in the neighborhood of about $50 million for what? She had they had $3.5 million left on hand at the beginning of 2024. So, women, Valentine's Day is almost here. I'm a married man. I'm going to keep my mouth shut about women and how well they spend money. Nikki Haley, objectively not good with a dollar. It's all out there in the public record, folks. You can look it up. 855-839-1210 is the number. Matt Rooney on the Matt Rooney Show. A little under an hour left to go. We're going to make the most of it. Don't move a muscle. Back after these commercials.
See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same, but is 95% cheaper? And you can get it online? Just go to hims.com/joy. Through Hims, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, a 100% online process, and trusted generic alternatives to the name brands at up to 95% off. That's right. Get generic for Viagra, the same active ingredient as brand name Viagra, but for 95% less. It's the same medication, still prescribed by a licensed medical provider, but with zero copay, no expensive appointments, and no awkward face-to-face conversations. To start your free online visit, you need to go to this exclusive address, hims.com/joy. That's hims.com/joy for your free online visit, hims.com/joy.
Major phone carriers make you sign contracts with rigid data plans to trap you into a kind of forced phonogamy. Sounds pretty insecure if you ask me. At Consumer Cellular, we believe in a more consensual and healthy form of phonogamy, free of contracts and more flexible to your data needs. This way, you stick around not because we force you to with contracts and fees, but because you love our phone plans. Like ardently love our phone plans. Phonogamously. Consumer Cellular. When freedom calls, we're here to answer. Call us at 1-888-FREEDOM.
Pass it on. You've heard it said, he's a diamond in the rough. Or maybe, diamonds are forever. Here's something else I've learned about diamonds. They're just pieces of coal put under pressure for a long, long, long time. So when I start feeling like I want to give up, I think about that little piece of coal. And if that piece of coal can make something of itself by not giving up, so can I. Persistence is in you. Pass it on. From PassItOn.com.
Don't miss the Education Show with Dom Giordano every Sunday morning at 5:30. Find out how you can help your child or grandchild succeed. Sponsored by New Hope Academy. Don't miss the Labor and Energy Show with J-Doc and Krause, brought to you by Advocacy United, this Saturday night at 6. Find out about the important issues that'll affect you. The Labor and Energy Show, Saturday night at 6 on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT.
It all comes down to this. Super Bowl 58. Listen live from Westwood One on the free Odyssey app. The Kansas City Chiefs.
Takes the snap. Darts a pass near side. Caught by Kelsey. Wrapped to the ground at the 12.
And the San Francisco 49ers.
With a comeback for the ages, the 49ers are going back to the Super Bowl.
Wherever you are next Sunday, stream Super Bowl 58 with Westwood One on the free Odyssey app. Download it today and search Super Bowl. AUDACY.
Pain in your knees, shoulders, hips, or back that won't go away? Check out QC Kinetics. No surgery, drugs, or downtime. QC Kinetics. 215-999-3000.
If you're facing $10,000, $20,000, or even $30,000 or more in credit card debt, medical bills, or other unsecured debt, there are programs available that can consolidate those debts into one single reduced payment you can afford if you qualify. Accredited Debt Relief is on a mission to help you become debt-free in just 24 to 48 months. They've helped over 300,000 qualified consumers. Hardworking Americans just like you pay off more than $3 billion in debt, earning them an A-plus rating from the Better Business Bureau. Accredited Debt Relief will tailor the program to fit your specific budget and financial situation. So call Accredited Debt Relief now for your free no-obligation savings estimate and let them help you take control of your financial destiny.
Call 800-873-7171. 800-873-7171. That's 800-873-7171. 800-873-7171. Program and services not available in all states.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-575-6481. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. There is zero risk to you. If we can't reduce your tax debt, then you pay nothing. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have a 5-star rating on Google and Yelp and an A-plus with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-575-6481. That's 800-575-6481. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
Hey, Riverton. We know your favorite station is Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. Always live on the free Odyssey app.
Well, you know that border bill that Joe Biden says he needs, even though he really doesn't, to do his job and defend this country from invasion? The Senate's released it. And, well, let's turn to Marco Rubio here, who said it's an easy no. And according to the Florida senator over on X, he said it reads like a parody of a border security bill. I think that says it all. I'm getting caught up on the details of this thing since the news broke right as we were coming on air this evening. According to Fox News, it is going to total over $118 billion. Not because they're spending $118 billion on the border, but surprise, surprise, they are tethering securing our border with aid to Ukraine and Israel. Which I've said it before, and I will say it again right now, regardless of how you feel about those topics, the idea that the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, the guy who is primarily tasked with defending this nation, he is putting us in a position where he will not defend our own people against invasion unless we support his foreign policy agenda. It's borderline criminal. It really, truly is. And listen to some of the details of this thing before we get to our next guest, because it's just, it makes your head hurt. And this is from Fox News. If the number of illegal border crossings reaches above 5,000 daily for a 5-day average, so 5 days, 25,000 people entering illegally, which how they're going to count that, it's a mystery to me because they're not counting most of them now. An expulsion authority would automatically kick in so that migrants are sent back to Mexico without an opportunity to make an asylum claim. Oh, wow. Really putting your foot down there. If the number exceeds 4,000, presidential administrations would have the option of using the expulsion authority. He has the expulsion authority now. The idea that anyone is taking this seriously really hurts me on a emotional, mental, every single level you can possibly imagine, because this is so obviously, and I think Alex Zidane said it earlier tonight at the program, something that is inextricably linked to politics for Democrats, right? Even though they know there's a crisis, their politics has boxed them in such that they can't even propose what needs to be done, let alone do it. It's look, folks, if you fall for this stuff, you're not paying close enough attention. I will try to help you if you listen to the Matt Rooney Show, but I can only do so much for the willfully blind. It's really that simple. 855-839-1210 is the number here on the program. Let's get to our third of three guests tonight. Last but certainly not least, she is the founder of Jersey First, a pro-taxpayer organization in the Garden State that is fighting for taxpayers, not just in New Jersey, but beyond, who are looking for real pro-taxpayer reform. She is an experienced tax attorney. She is a veteran of Capitol Hill. She's seen the sausage and how it's made. And when I read about this bipartisan, doing air quotes there for those of you not watching over the YouTube page, this bipartisan tax bill, I knew I had to have an expert on to help me make sense of it. So we're turning to Rosemary Becky. She joins us tonight on 1210 WPHT. Rosemary, welcome back to the program. Oh, did we just lose her? That always happens when I give somebody a really good buildup and then we press the wrong button or they drop or something like that happens.
Yeah, we'll have to get her back on the line.
This is real live radio, folks. I was just talking about sausage being made too. Rosemary knows how it's made on Capitol Hill. We're showing you how it's made here live on the radio. While we're waiting for Rosemary, I'm going to tweet this border bill because it's up and it is insane. And of course, they're calling it, they always give it great names, right? The Emergency National Security Supplemental Appropriations Act. What does aid to Ukraine at this point have to do with our national security? I get it. I'm not an idiot. I understand that a weakened Putin, at least in theory, means a weakened puppet for China, or China, as our future former president may say, right? But goodness gracious, when we have millions of illegal aliens, some of them probably embedded agents from hostile countries, right, coming across the border on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, the idea that you are tying it to foreign aid and somehow trying to pretend it's the same thing, it's just positively awful. This is why people hate Washington, and this is why people hate politics, and why people are so suspicious when they hear the word bipartisan, because usually that means that someone isn't doing their job advocating for us. Maybe this tax bill is different. I think we have Rosemary now on the line. Rosemary Becky from Jersey Force joins us on the Matt Rooney Show. Welcome back to 1210, Rosemary. Glad you're with us.
Thank you, Matt. And yes, I am here. Thank you. Glad to be here to talk about this.
That was a test. The fact that we got you on the line again and you didn't go anywhere, that's a true friend. So tell me what's going on. With everything happening right now in the country, the retaliatory strikes against these Iranian affiliates, what's happening with immigration, this bipartisan tax bill kind of snuck in there and probably isn't getting the attention that it deserves. I know there is a component of this, or I guess the primary element of this, is an expansion of the child tax credit. Can you decipher what's happening here for the rest of us?
Yeah, no, happy to. And look, there are some good things in this tax bill and some much needed things. As you mentioned, there is the expansion of the child tax credit, but there's also some business provisions that are really hitting small businesses hard. There was a change in the way research expenses were deductible. They went from being deductible to having to take that deduction over a period of time. And so that fixes this problem. That could potentially mean 21 million more jobs with just this fix. And then it changed some of the rules around expensing, again, helping small businesses. And then there's another provision, again, focused on our small businesses and stuff around interest deductibility and stuff. So there are some very good things in this bill, and frankly, it's being paid for with something that frankly was put into the law during the pandemic, the employer retention tax credit that, became broader and taken advantage of. And so, the legislation would preclude some continued claims on that and stuff. So there are some good things here in the bill. And as you said, it was on a bipartisan basis. There are a lot of different reasons why people voted for and against the bill.
Right. Many motivations, which is always the case, I guess, with any major piece of legislation, contributing to who supported this legislation and who didn't. Part of the debate on the ideological end of this, the analysis of this particular bill that I've seen online, and particularly over on X, is whether or not the continued expansion of the child tax credit is a good thing or a bad thing on a whole. So as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, one of the things this bill is going to do is provide a larger credit in at least the first year to low income families, which encompass somewhere between 15 to 20 million American children. That sounds great, right? Because we want people to have children. And we need kids in this country. Our birth rate's not doing much better than many other advanced nations around the globe. But some have said, particularly on the right side of the aisle, that it is just more distribution of someone else's money and therefore not a positive thing in the long run if true tax reform is what we're after. Do you come down on that debate one way or the other?
Look, I don't. I think there's good arguments on both sides of this. I think that there's a real concern about the fact that we need to make sure that this isn't just welfare that's out there and stuff. And so, I think that this bill that Jason Smith, who chairs the Ways and Means Committee for the House Republican, has crafted this in a way where, it won't be abused and that it will go to working families. They've worked very hard to make sure of that. So
it is interesting to see where the Republican Party goes on the child tax credit and some other analogous issues in 2024 and beyond. For the longest time, as I just mentioned a minute ago, conservatives have opposed this sort of stuff, at least on the intellectual level, right? Because we don't like redistribution of income. But at the same time, and you've seen some of this in Eastern Europe, increasingly, many people are saying, you know what? If we're going to spend money, we might as well spend it to encourage families and people having families, which is necessary to, again, kind of solidify Western nations demographically, where birth rates are plummeting. So you saw some of this from Donald Trump in 2020. He was unsuccessful, obviously, but one of the things he talked about is the federal government helping people with childcare. I can say this right now as a father of two young children. As much as I hate my property tax burden in New Jersey, politicians love to talk about property taxes. They say they're going to do something about it. They never do. The cost of daycare is something that hits me in the wallet in a much more direct and visible way on a weekly basis than my property taxes, which are baked into a mortgage taxes insurance bill that, you pay on a monthly basis. Do you see this as a trend heading into 2024? Are Republicans in this country maybe becoming more like politicians in the former Eastern Bloc, where they're moving away from kind of a strict, hey, listen, redistribution of income is always bad. If it's pro-family, maybe that's something that we can rally around?
Oh, absolutely. I think that that's a real trend that you're going to see going into this election. And look, this is going to be a big issue in the 2024 election and in 2025. And just to take a minute to talk about that, in 2025, we have all of the Trump tax cuts that many of them are going to be expiring. And so you're going to see a lot of debate around those because if it's not addressed, like, for instance, the individual tax rates will go up. And so it's going to be really important to address those issues in 2025. And so you'll see a lot of debate around it. Certainly, a lot of people in the Northeast will be happy to see that, the limitations on the SALT deduction expires in 2025.
Right.
But again, that's one that's going to have to be debated, right? Like, should those limitations be put in place again or not? Certainly in New Jersey, we don't want that put in place again, but there are other parts of the country where they support caps on the SALT. And so you're going to see a lot of different debate on these issues. And I don't think that things are going to be decided on traditional lines. I will say the one thing I think that Republicans will be united on is the deficit and deficit spending. And so I can't imagine running or seeing people running on campaigns or getting behind legislation that it doesn't, pay for tax cuts in some way. And so that's going to be some really hard conversations.
It wasn't that long ago, really, that we actually had a balanced budget. It took Newt Gingrich and his Republican Congress to force Bill Clinton to come to the table to get it. Who knows? Maybe in our lifetime we'll see it again. We can always hope, Rosemary, that happy day will arrive. Well, I mean, as you can tell, if you didn't know it already, folks, Rosemary understands this stuff inside and out, which is why we always turn to her and Jersey First. You can check out Jersey First over on X. It's JRSY1ST, right? Jersey First over there on X, formerly known as Twitter. And Rosemary is RM Becky. Always great analysis, always great insights. And, fundamentally, they're doing really good work in New Jersey and beyond to try to get information out there about these economic issues, which, especially, as I said at the beginning of this discussion, with immigration and conflagrations overseas, they just don't always get the attention that they deserve. So hopefully 2024 is different in this regard. Rosemary, we always appreciate you joining us on the Matt Rooney Show. Never be a stranger.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Have a great night. That's Rosemary Becky, everyone, from Jersey First. You're listening to the Matt Rooney Show here on 1210 WPHT. We are capitalists here at this program, so we're going to play some ads to make some money, and then we'll be back in just a moment.
As veterans, we're no strangers to helping others.
It's what we were taught, trained, and told to do.
It could be for anything. Helping a friend move.
Listening to a fellow veteran for hours, at any hour of the day.
Or just simply making time for people. A neighbor, a loved one, or even a stranger.
We're often the first to help others. There's no question about it.
But we do have one question for the veterans listening.
When was the last time you reached out for help?
Perhaps it's time to do for yourself what you would do for others.
If you or someone you know needs resources, whether it's for stress, finances, employment, or mental health, don't wait. Reach out.
Find more information at va.gov/reach. That's va.gov/reach.
Brought to you by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Dom Giordano. Celebrate American Heart Month with Rescue Natural Supplements. For over 38 years, Rescue brand omega-3s have been providing people with the essentials to fortify heart health, reduce inflammation, and support healthy cholesterol levels. That's why it's the best time to dive into Rescue's February special. Right now, Rescue's most popular products, their premium omega-3 fish oil supplements, are buy one, get one free exclusively for American Heart Month. Just use the listener code OMEGA50 when placing your order. Call today at 800-26-LIVE, 800-262-5483. Speak to a knowledgeable product consultant or use the code OMEGA50 online when you visit res-q.com. Don't forget the code OMEGA50 when you buy one bottle of a Rescue Omega-3 to receive a second bottle free. Again, use the code OMEGA50. Fortify your heart with the Rescue Omega-3.
I'm John Morgan of Morgan & Morgan. If you've been injured in a car accident, call America's largest injury law firm. For over 35 years, my mission has been to deliver more for our clients, to deliver more for you. If you or anyone in your family has been injured in a car accident, call us now, as the time to file a claim may be limited. Last year, more clients hired Morgan & Morgan than ever before, protecting America, fighting for you. Morgan & Morgan. Visit forthepeople.com for an office near you.
When you need to know, depend on KYW News Radio 1039 FM.
You'll want to avoid I-95 northbound in South Philadelphia because demolition shut down all lanes for the rest of the weekend. Philadelphia police are looking into a shooting on I-76 last night. No word on whether anyone was killed or injured.
Get the latest anytime on KYW News Radio. Now on Crystal Clear 103.9 FM.
You've never needed us more.
If you're facing $10,000, $20,000, or even $30,000 or more in credit card debt, medical bills, or other unsecured debt, there are programs available that can consolidate those debts into one single reduced monthly payment you can afford if you qualify. Accredited Debt Relief is on a mission to help you become debt-free in just 24 to 48 months. They've helped over 300,000 qualified consumers. Hardworking Americans just like you pay off more than $3 billion in debt, earning them an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau. Accredited Debt Relief will tailor the program to fit your specific budget and financial situation. So call Accredited Debt Relief now for your free no-obligation savings estimate and let them help you take control of your financial destiny.
Call 800-663-1313. 800-663-1313. That's 800-663-1313. 800-663-1313. Program and services not available in all states.
When you need to know, depend on KYW News Radio 1039 FM.
You'll want to avoid I-95 northbound in South Philadelphia because demolition shut down all lanes for the rest of the weekend. Philadelphia police are looking into a shooting on I-76 last night. No word on whether anyone was killed or injured.
Get the latest anytime on KYW News Radio. Now on Crystal Clear 103.9 FM.
You've never needed us more.
When you're still looking for love, Valentine's Day sucks. Every restaurant is fully booked. Suddenly all chocolates are heart-shaped and all the PDA. Thankfully, California Psychics can give you the guidance you need to find the one. We guarantee if your reading isn't life-changing, it's free. And new customers receive 20 minutes for just $20. Visit CaliforniaPsychics.com and experience the joy of certainty. California Psychics.
Calling on Blackwood to follow 1210 WPHT on the free Odyssey app. Download it now.
I'm like everyone else. Usually the eye of the tiger charges me up, but now I'm just sad.
I tried getting you in the spirit. At least a good spirit. I don't know. So it's a heavy subject to broach.
It's heavy, right?
Yeah.
And for those of you wondering if we've taken leave of our senses, I mean, yes, we have, but that's a separate discussion altogether. We're referring, of course, to the passing of the legendary Carl Weathers, who he wasn't young, but I don't think Carl Weathers was very old, was he?
I think it was 73.
Yeah, by today's standards, that's a spring chicken.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know whether he was battling. It looks like 76. He was 76 years old. And according to his family statement, he passed peacefully in his sleep. I don't know if he suffered some sort of sudden traumatic event, a heart attack or something, or if he had been battling an undisclosed illness. Of course, Carl Weathers had a more extensive catalog than a lot of people knew. Clearly as indicated by Eye of the Tiger. What do you remember him for primarily? Apollo Creed, right? In the Rocky movies. Legendary stuff. But he also was an actual athlete in his own
NFL,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, played in the NFL. He also had some other acting credits to his name. One of my favorites actually was
Happy Gilmore.
Well, right. So Happy Gilmore.
Mhm.
I wasn't going there, but yes,
Oh.
that's true. Happy Gilmore
Okay.
is fantastic. I was going to say along the comedy lines there, Curb Your Enthusiasm. Or not Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Arrested Development.
Arrested Development. That's what I meant to
Yeah.
say. I'm thinking of a Curb because they just released the new season.
Yeah, it's actually
series
15
finale.
minutes. Right as the show ends, you get a new episode of Curb.
Boom. What else could you want out of life, right?
Seriously.
Matt Rudy and Larry David back to back. But on Arrested Development, he was really solid. He played a caricature of himself. Yeah, like trying to score free meals and
Yeah,
everything. It was pretty
being
awesome.
cheap, yeah.
Yeah. Which goes to show you, not only did the guy have a little bit more of a range than you otherwise would have thought, he had a sense of humor.
Did you ever hear how it came to be that he got on the show?
No.
The creative director of the show wanted to get him on to do like a Rocky 3 parody. And so when he agreed to do it, he talked to the guy. He was like, "Hey, I hope you're just not getting me on so we parody Rocky." And he was like, "Oh, of course not, never." And he was like, "Shoot, what do I do? What do I pitch this guy?" And he's like, and then Carl Weathers like, "You know what? How about I be really cheap in my episode, my character arc?" And he's like, "Cheap? Yeah, sure."
Yeah, sure. Why not?
And it worked.
Just
He
come
was
on. It
great
did
at it.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was a funny show, at least first couple of seasons. And he definitely contributed to it. So R.I.P. Carl Weathers, definitely a part of my childhood, and I'm sure many of you are going to agree with this, that is now passed on into memory. It sticks. I mean, obviously there's a human who is now no longer with us. That in of itself is sad, but it's also what it represents. So I'm going to try to watch some Rocky.
Did you see
next weekend.
Stallone's video on Instagram? He was really moved to almost about to cry. I mean,
was he broken up?
He was broken up about it. And at the end, he said, "Keep punching," and that was really it was really sweet and tender. I mean, wow, I can't believe I just said sweet and tender.
Well, no, I mean, look, I believe it because, I mean, look at it this way. We all know that, or at least those of us that follow Rocky lore know that Sylvester Stallone was beyond penniless at the time he hit it big with the first Rocky.
Yeah.
I mean, he was practically living in a trash can like Oscar the Grouch at the time that took off. So Carl Weathers is probably more than just a guy he spent a bunch of time with on movie sets. He's someone that helped turn Sylvester Stallone's life around.
A literal life change.
Yes.
He literally credited him for that movie. And that's when he, towards the tail end of the video, that's when he really just he was about to cry, just full on bawling. And
I gotta go check that out when we get done.
Mm-hmm.
It's although Sylvester Stallone crying.
He was about to. Towards the end,
You're sick for laughing at that.
I am kind of sick. Well, I'm just kind of imagining talking like Rocky.
Yep. You sounded just like Rocky.
You like the sound of old Rocky crying.
I do. Well, yeah. I mean, I'm kind of twisted. We know this already. Although, look, I mean, we've talked a lot about foreign policy tonight. The greatest foreign policy speech of all time is Rocky's speech at the end of Rocky IV after he defeats Ivan Drago. I wish I had thought to pull that tonight. You know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I can change and you can change. We all can change. And then the Politburo stands up and starts clapping, because that's how it would have gone, obviously, had that bout ever actually occurred. But it's amazing, right?
Yeah.
Another
classic movie.
We got the clip you sent if you want to play it.
Yeah, no, this is a very simple clip, but this is Rocky 3, right?
Yeah, it is Rocky 3.
Rocky Trace. Yeah, this is when they're training to take on Clubber Lang.
He's hooking. Damn, Ron, come on. What's the matter with you?
Tomorrow. Let's do it tomorrow.
There is no tomorrow. There is no tomorrow.
Also, exactly what I screamed to Henry at the end of every show. We'll do better next week. There is no next week. It's sad. Carl Weathers no longer with us. I'm going to further depress us on the way out the door here.
Oh, fun.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, this has just been a sad show, right? So we started out tonight talking to a lieutenant colonel about how basically our military can't defend us anymore, right? That's how we started out the program. And then we talked about the border crisis. Alex Zidane came on and told us it's actually worse than you think it is. We got a little bit of good news from our friend Rosemary Becky that maybe this new tax bill isn't as bad as you might have suspected. Well, this is from Newsmax. 1 in 3 Americans feel lonely at least once a week. A lot of lonely people out there as we head into Valentine's Day. Among U.S. adults, as according to Newsmax, about 1 in 3 said they feel lonely at least once a week. Worse, 1 in 10 Americans say they feel lonely every day, results show. And not all these people are Henry. Younger people are more likely to experience loneliness, which is defined, and this is all, by the way, from the American Psychiatric Association. They define loneliness as a lack of meaningful or close relationships or sense of belonging. About 30% of respondents ages 18 to 34 said they feel lonely every day or several times a week. According to APA President Petros Levunos, the poll confirms loneliness is widespread, especially at young people. Doctors and other clinicians can make a major difference in their patients' well-being and physical health when they ask about loneliness and how to mitigate its effects. Well, that's all fine and good. And I know we're talking about a poll that came from a psychiatric association, but why are so many young people feeling this way? And I can't help but do this, but hey, you're listening to a talk show where we spend a lot of time talking about politics. If it's not affecting the decisions that young people make, right? When this many of them are depressed. Like, for example, are they really having less social interaction than maybe people in that same age cohort had 30 years ago? Or is social media making them feel more detached? And does that make them more likely to latch on to someone like, I don't know, a T Swift or Barack Obama or somebody who's presented as the cultural messiah of the moment? And does that impact their politics and how they vote? It all kind of comes together, I think, in a somewhat, as I admitted a moment ago, depressing stew. But it's something we have to try to begin to unpack, because this is not good. And I also think, guys, when I absorb this poll, at the same time, we've seen surveys, and I think we talked about on last week's program, where now you've got something of like 25% of people in that same age cohort, young Americans, Gen Z, who say they're non-binary. I mean, we joked last week, oh, because plastics in the water or something, you know?
Yeah.
Like, how did that happen already? You'd expect some kind of uptick now that we're in this more permissive, woke society, that more people are now coming out and saying, hey, I feel differently than maybe my parents did towards the opposite sex. But 25%, something else is going on here.
That also, maybe it's anecdotal, but I feel like that's a way too high number. And that's why I don't trust like polls, because people can mess with them. Who cares?
Well, you tell me, Henry, because you're between the ages of 18 and 34. Do you think that you have a lot of people in your age group that you encounter who are lonely?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
And
whether they want to admit it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is it the whole lonely in a crowded room effect, that you have so many ways to interact with other people that when you're not constantly engaged, or when those interactions aren't positive, it makes you feel as if you're lonely?
Yeah, I definitely think that comes into play here for sure. I mean,
social media is the devil. I know it makes me sound like I'm 80.
Well, no, I'm so anti social media. I really am. I like Twitter for news, but like I burn way too much time on like TikTok and all those things. It does feel like that at times, even in my own life.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm on Twitter for news and and who I follow, and I think social media is like really has gotten way out of control. It's gotten so toxic, and that's when with this, and how how things been over the past couple of years, maybe if not more. That's why I think a lot of people are kind of like just reserved, and their self-esteem is like shot to heck.
I thought it was interesting, Kirk, because in this poll, it says that 50% of respondents ease their loneliness with distractions, including social media.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then a little bit further down in the survey, it says, well, they also find that online is one of the least helpful places to
Mhm.
ease your loneliness.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you're
Yep.
looking for what you used to get from
Mhm.
somewhere else, maybe church, synagogue, community, whatever, that doesn't exist anymore for many people.
Yep.
So you're going to the well online and you're coming up empty.
And that's the thing. Like
Mhm.
those spaces that used to exist, they're just like almost like a thing of the past.
Yeah.
And you talked about like a part of loneliness is like being categorized as a sense of not belonging. I guarantee you there's a lot more people that feel that way, like they don't
Mhm.
belong, rather than that,
Yep.
like they don't have friends or something.
Yep.
That they just don't belong anywhere, don't have something they belong to.
Yep.
As that form of loneliness. And I think that's what drives that number pretty high. And wouldn't be surprised if that like is what's driving. Like if you broke it down between who has friends and who just feels out of place, I guarantee the who feels out of place would skyrocket. It's driving that poll.
Oh, I 100%. I mean, I always think back in college, they made us read this book, and some of you may be familiar with it, Bowling Alone by Robert Putnam. This whole idea that, we used to have things like bowling leagues, and we used to go to churches and even corner bars, right? Many of you that are from some of these older northeastern cities will remember growing up at a time where there was a bar on almost every corner in a place like Newark or Scranton. And not that we love alcoholism, right? Even though sometimes when you read these headlines, you're tempted to experiment with it, maybe. But at least it was a place you went and you could connect with other people. And those kinds of spaces, as Henry's alluding to, just really don't exist anymore. And I don't think, to give the dead horse one more swift kick here, you can say that this state in which we find our culture and the lonely people that now populate it, it's not divorced from our politics. It's probably dangerous. It's probably dangerous because, as I said a moment ago, I mentioned T-Swift, right? We're always picking on T-Swift. I know that triggers some of you. She may be a more benign example, but it really does make people more vulnerable to some charlatans. And it's something you have to be aware of, especially if you have a young person in your life who may be going down the wrong path. But that's enough from me for one evening here on the Matt Rooney Show. As I promised, we covered as much as we possibly could, but we can never get to it all. Reminder, no show next weekend because the Swift Bowl will be completely monopolizing all. But we will be back the following weekend, whatever date that might be, for more fun and games here on 1210 WPHT. Thank you, Henry. Thank you, Kirk. Thank you as ever to everyone that either listened on the radio or watched online. Until we return, stay safe, stay sane, and keep fighting for this greatest nation in God's creation. It's worth it.
The IRS is the most powerful collection agency on earth, and if you owe back taxes, the news isn't good. The IRS is raising the interest rate it charges on unpaid taxes, and further rate